G'day everyone and welcome to another Battleforge Gaming Ultimate Guide. In this episode, we'll be working on a Space Marine from the Salamanders chapter. If you find these tutorials helpful, please give them a like as well and a sub to our channel. As with all of our guides, this model will be built in sub-assemblies with the arms, backpack, and head separate. The first step is to prime our model, and for this we are using Wraithbone from Citadel. Working on the power armor first, we are going to thin down some Warpstone Glow. If you do have an airbrush, I would recommend you use that instead of layering it with a brush. But if you don't, you're going to apply 3 very thin coats of Warpstone Glow. Next, we will add a recess shade using some thinned down Caliban Green. Be as neat with this step as you possibly can, as relayering that Warpstone Glow is quite difficult. Thinning down some Abaddon Black next and applying 2 thin coats. We will work on the inset of the shoulder pads, the backpack, the weapon casing, the gaps between your armors, and anywhere else that you want to paint black. Areas that we are going to paint with some metallic gold in a later step, we are now going to base coat with XV88. So that could be Aquillas or any trinkets that the Marine has on them. Focusing on the leather areas next, we are going to mix together Corvus Black and Stormvermin Fur in a 1-to-1 ratio. Any areas that we are going to paint with lead belcher in the future, we are now going to base coat with some standard Mechanicus grey. Base coating the skin now, we are going to use Skavenblight Dinge. This is a layer paint, so it is going to take 3 thin layers to cover. Mixing Khorne Red and Screamer Pink in a 1-to-1 ratio, we're going to base coat the grip of the Thunderhammer and any little salamander scale trinkets that this model has. Mixing together Wraithbone and Yriel Yellow, we are going to base coat any areas that we will paint with hazard stripes. Note that I do change my mind on the helmet and remove the hazard stripes from the head, but we do paint the hazard stripes on the Thunderhammer. Taking some thin down flash Gitz yellow, we're going to base coat the flame on top of the backpack. This is only going to be the base coat. We will work on the rest of this later. This will take 2 thin coats. With a mixture of white scar and grey seer, we are going to paint the chapter icon. The grey seer helps for coverage and the white scar helps brighten up this grey. With all of your base coats applied, this is how your model should look. If there are any areas you aren't happy with, just take some of the colors we just painted with and tidy them up. We will now move on to adding details to this miniature. Starting off, we are going to focus on the black areas of the miniature. This is going to be a 3-step edge highlight, with the first highlight, the chunky one, being a mixture of Abaddon Black and Eshin Grey in a 1-to-1 ratio. The secondary edge highlight we are going to apply is Eshin Grey. If you make any mistakes with this step, just tidy it up with your previous color. The third edge highlight we're going to apply is Dawnstone Grey. In this example, I am showing you the gaps between the armor because we are not going to paint the entirety of the raised area, just a section of it. To finish off the black, we're going to add a dot highlight of Administratum Grey. On the areas in between the armor, it is going to be along an imaginary line, and on the weapon casing and the backpack, it is going to be on the corners. Moving on to our power armor now, we're going to apply two highlights, the first of which is a mixture of 2 parts Warpstone Glow and 1 part Moot Green. The secondary edge highlight we're going to apply is pure Moot Green. You want to thin this down a little bit so it flows. And if you make any mistakes, just go back with your primary edge highlight mix and tidy it up. To finalize our green power armor, we are going to add a dot highlight of Dorn Yellow and Moot Green in a 1-to-1 mix. Moving on to the leather and the pink grip areas, we're going to shade these with Nuln Oil. Taking the Screamer Pink and Khorne Red 1-to-1 mix that we used to base coat the pink, we're now going to use that same mix to add a primary highlight. Adding a secondary edge highlight to the pink areas, we are going to mix Wild Rider Red and Pink Horror in a 1-to-1 ratio. Moving back to our leather areas now, we're going to add a thick primary edge highlight of Eshin Grey. To finalize the leather areas, we're going to apply the patented Battleforged Gaming Broken Edge highlight. For this, we are using Dawnstone Grey, and you want to paint a series of dots and dashes almost like Morse code, but the hard part is painting it randomly. Moving on to the head now, we're going to start by painting those iconic red salamander eyes. For this, we're going to take some Mephiston red and paint where essentially the whites of the eyes would be. Next, we're going to take some Yriel Yellow and paint the pupils. Take your time with this step, and I do apologize, the autofocus was struggling, but I did get it to work on the second pupil. To finalize the eyes, we're going to take some Carroburg Crimson and thin it down a little bit with Larmian Medium in a 1-to-1 mix and just tint those eyes. Paint the whole area of the eye. Focusing on the skin now, we are going to thin down Skavenblight Dinge and start to layer up the skin. This is going to be thinned down slightly as we want it to be a little transparent. Repeating the same process except focusing on the higher points, we're going to thin down Stormvermin Fur. With a mixture of Karakstone and Stormvermin Fur in a 1-to-1 mix, we're going to add a highlight to the very highest points of this skin. Thinning down some Screamer Pink with Larmian Medium in around a 1-to-1 ratio. We're going to paint this around his service stud and also into his scars. Repeat that process, except with some pink horror mixed with Larmian Medium. Focus more on the center of the scars and closer to the service stud. To finish the skin, we are going to add a final highlight of Karakstone. Paint this as thin as you possibly can. Moving on to the white chapter icon, we are going to make a shade mixture of Thunderhawk Blue and Larmian Medium with 1 part Thunderhawk Blue and 5 parts Larmian Medium. My shade dried a little blotchy, but that's okay because we are going to relayer this, thinning down some Ulthuan Grey and layering it up. You may need 2 layers to cover. Using some white scar next, we are going to add a single edge highlight to the chapter icon. Now focusing on the hazard stripe pipe, we're going to base coat this with pure Yriel Yellow. We will now shade the pipe with some Dorn Yellow. The goal with this is to have a darker shade on the outside of the pipe. So you may need to take your brush, remove the paint from it, and wick a bit of that shade off. Next, we will work on blocking in that hazard stripe pattern. I've cut down some painter's tape to a mil thick and wrapped it around the pipe. We're just going to use this as a guide. Do not paint over the top of the tape or you will get some bleed. If you do get some bleed, just take some Yriel Yellow and tidy it up. To finalize our hazard stripes, we're going to take some Screaming Skull and try and add a single thin edge highlight down the highest point where the light hits your pipe. We will now work on the part you've either been waiting for or dreading, the fire on top of the backpack. I'm going to leave these edits rather long so you can see each step. We want to begin by thinning down some Fire Dragon Bright with some water, around 1 part Fire Dragon Bright to 6 parts water, and you are going to drag it towards the top of each flame. You will repeat this process around 4 times. We will now repeat a similar process, except thinning it down Troll Slayer Orange. So you want to keep some of that thinned Fire Dragon bright glaze visible. Moving on to some thinned down Evil Sun Scarlet, we're going to yet again repeat that same process, leaving some of those two previous colors visible. Thinning down some Galvabark Red now, we're going to repeat that same process, focusing on the higher points of the fire. Adding some Abaddon Black to the Galvabark Red we just used in a 1-to-1 ratio, we are going to glaze the higher points of the fire, leaving some of the previous color visible. Thinning down some White Scar, not as thin as our previous glazes. We're going to focus on the very hottest points of the fire. Mixing together 2 parts Abaddon Black to 1 part Galvabark and adding a small amount of water. This is not a glaze. we're going to focus on the very highest points of the fire, almost an edge highlight, as you can see in this video. To finalize this fire, we're going to take some Administratum Grey and add the smallest possible highlights to some of those high points of the flame. Next, we are going to work on the transfers. You want to apply all of the standard shoulder pad transfers and backpack transfers for your campaign and squad markings. I do also cut up 3 of the shoulder transfers and some small flames to create the silhouette on the leg and the hand for the flames we will paint later. After they have had time to dry, you want to use some microsol to help them adhere to the miniature. With the transfers now applied to the miniature, we are going to start to paint those flames in on the legs and the wrist. We're going to use the same recipe we just used for the flame on the backpack, except we are only going to work to the Bark Red, and that's where it ends. We're not going to worry about doing any of the black highlights. Once you have finished painting in the flames on the hand and the leg, we're going to varnish the model with Tamiya TS80 Flat Clear. Now you do want to make sure you have sealed all of the transfers, otherwise this varnish can eat away at them. With your varnish fully dried, we are now going to focus on all the metallic areas, starting with the gold. And for this, we're going to base coat Retributor armor. Painting the muzzle of the flame pistol with Balthazar gold. Any of the silver metallic areas that we had previously based with standard Mechanicus Grey, we are now going to paint with Lead Belcher. With all of the metallic areas base coated, we are now going to start to shade them. Beginning with the gold, we are going to use some Reikland Flesh Shade. Taking some Nuln Oil, we are going to shade the areas we had base coated with Lead Belcher. Taking Retributor Armor, we will re-layer the gold areas. Mixing together Retributor Armor and Storm Host Silver in a 1-to-1 ratio, we're going to continue to layer the gold areas, focusing on the higher points. You want to leave some of that previous color visible. To finalize the gold, we are going to add a single edge highlight of Storm Host Silver. And whilst we are doing this step, we can also highlight those areas that we had painted with Lead Belcher. We will now start with the heat damage on the muzzle of the flame pistol. This also works with melters. Taking some Yriel Yellow, we want to drag it towards the front of the muzzle, painting the majority of it. Once your Yriel Yellow has dried, we're going to take some Druchii Violet and repeat a similar process, leaving some of the previous color on the muzzle, and we want to drag this towards the front of the pistol. With the Druchii Violet Dryad, we're now going to repeat the same process with Drakenhof Knight. Again, you want to leave some of the previous color visible and drag it towards the front of the pistol. The last shade we are going to add to this heat damage is Nuln Oil. Just like all the previous steps, we want to drag it towards the front of the muzzle, leaving some of the previous color visible. The final step to this miniature is to take some Stormho Silver and add an edge highlight to the muzzle of this flame pistol. And with that step complete, you have finished your Salamander Intercessor. Hopefully you have found this tutorial helpful, and I will catch you on the next Ultimate Guide.